everybody, and welcome to the Still in Love podcast. This is episode number 2, and we are rolling in season 3. And we are very, very excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. And today, Brother Pastor Myron, we are talking about...
I need my spouse to show up.
That's very good.
It's very good.
This is very good. This is going to be a very good episode. As all the other ones are, but this is going to be really good. I feel like it's very relevant to where people are. We just are.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's important to show up in your marriage. It's important that you show up for your spouse.
Yep.
It's important for you to understand the needs of your spouse and to ensure that you are showing up. And you're not just giving what you want to give, but you're giving what your spouse need you to give.
Correct.
And so we've talked just before just about showing up in different seasons of the marriage. Because in one season you need me to show up this way, and another season you need me to show up this way, and another. And so it doesn't stay the same.
No.
Because sometimes it's, when you're younger, hey, this is what I need. But now in this season, the need has changed. So I need this. And oftentimes couples get to a place in their marriage where they have a difficult time transitioning when there's a transition in the marriage. Hey, I needed you to show up like this, and when we didn't have any kids. Now we have small kids. Now I need you to show up like this. And so now when we had an apartment, I needed you to show up like this. Now we have a home, a house. I need you to show up like this. Now when I wasn't working, I need you to show up like this. And now that I'm working, I need you to show up like this. And so, and oftentimes people just stay stuck in one season. Yeah. And so you can't be stuck in winter when it's the summertime. You know what I'm saying? To where in the wintertime it's like, hey, we're wearing coats. Yep. But now it's the summertime.
Correct.
You can't keep
that
coat.
There with the coat.
Yeah, you can't keep the and that's what happened oftentimes in marriage. The season change, but you don't change with the season.
Absolutely.
And you have to adjust to the season.
Yes.
You have to check the temperature, know what time it is, know what's going on, know what season we're in, and adjust appropriately.
Correct. I remember being married younger. We weren't that young, but we were younger. And I just, when we were first married, we didn't have children. And so we were working together, but we didn't have a child together. Madison wasn't here. And we could just show up you were still in seminary, and my showing up for you could be reflected in me assisting you probably with schoolwork or helping you type your paper or research or something like that. But that's just me supporting you in that particular season. I didn't have anything. I wasn't in school at the time. I was working. We were in ministry together, but I didn't have any external things going on. So outside of just the natural husband support, I wasn't per se in a season of needing any additional support out of just what just kind of exists anyway. But then when Madison hit the scene, so you graduated in May, Madison was born in August. We are now young, first-time home buyers together, had just bought a home, closed on our house 3 days after she was born. So it seemed like a lot hit us at one time, and I was no longer working. So we went from a 2-income household to 1 income, a brand new baby, and a brand new home, all within a very short time period.
Say that again. So we went from a 2-income home,
2-income household.
We was transitioning
and
from an apartment.
technically, if we look at it, all of that happened within almost like a week's time.
Yep.
I was employed. That Sunday, I went to be induced. I was 1 day away from FMLA, from taking my short term so that I could be off work. But I went into labor a day early. And so that was that Sunday. I was supposed to go to work that Monday so that I could be induced on Tuesday so that I could grab my day. I was 1 day away. Went into labor instead on Sunday. Had Madison on early Monday morning, 1 or 2 o'clock. And we closed on our home that Thursday. That's crazy.
That's a lot.
That's crazy. We were two income just us, a two income couple, and a week later we were a one income, new home, new baby couple.
Yep.
A lot going on at one time.
Yeah.
A lot for me emotionally. New baby, trying to get. It's hard enough coming home with the baby, but coming home with the baby knowing that my job didn't honor my FMLA, that they were giving me a hard time about that. In addition to, we closed on our home, which we had to move from our apartment at that time into our home, and we had not packed. So it was a lot going on during that time. That week was crazy.
Yeah.
That week was crazy. But I will say how we had to show up for each other was a not. I'm not going to say a challenge, but it was a challenge because I'm in new homeowner mode. Like, oh, we got to get some things together. But I'm primarily in new mama mode where I got to figure this mama thing out. Like, so she's feeding every 2-3 hours. Like, I'm not getting any sleep. I'm woke. I'm giving you an opportunity. You would, hold her. You got her down, but you went right back to work.
I did.
So there was no, we weren't even on the whole dad's taking some time off. That was like almost unheard of. Yeah. It was no, you got to go back to work. Like, you could have gone back like that Monday. Like, well, you back at work. So here I am with this little baby just trying to figure these things out. And so how you had to show up for me in that season was by helping me, sometimes getting up with her at night, feeding her. I wasn't breastfeeding, so it was just easier for you to grab the bottle. You could feed her, or I would get up, but I would almost feel guilty about asking you to get up when you were the only one that was working. So it's that was kind of hard, and your own internal battles that you're going through. And I can look back at it now, but at that moment, I didn't know that probably a little bit of everything that I was experiencing during that time was leading to a bigger blow up of postpartum.
Yep.
So, maneuvering that was hard. And I think because we didn't have verbiage for certain things, that you showed up the best way you knew how to show up. But my emotions were also at war, I think, with any type of peace that I could probably have. Or even using the right verbiage to ask for what I wanted. I didn't even know what I needed. I didn't even know what I wanted, Thankfully, also, we had an amazing support system that came in and did their thing. But even still, that was just still hard in the showing up. Because sometimes, and I could even say that, sometimes you don't know how to tell your spouse to show up. I didn't really know what to tell you. Like, show up for me in this way.
Yes.
And I couldn't do it out of a place where that wasn't probably riddled with guilt. Because I felt guilty to a certain extent for, dang. And it's crazy. I couldn't keep her in Sunday. I couldn't stop the labor. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't stop her from coming. But I felt a little bad about, dang, if I could have just hold on one more day. I was one day away. How come I just couldn't, The Lord still proved to be faithful during that time. But that was rough.
Yeah.
That was a little rough.
Yeah,
that was rough.
And I think, man, that it was a lot that went on during that time. And I think it's we talk a lot about leaning into the turn. So when there's a turn in the relationship, you have to lean into it. If you're riding a motorcycle, in the curves, in the turn, you have to lean into the turn. If you don't lean into the turn, then you'll crash. Yeah. And if somebody's on there with you, both of you all have to lean the same way into that turn. And that's what happens when there's transitions in the marriage and things change and there's a turn. You have to both lean into it.
Absolutely.
Even when you're unfamiliar with it, because sometimes you can prepare for certain turns, and we prepared for baby. We prepared for
we thought we did.
And there was still a turn because there was certain things we didn't prepare for. One income, we didn't prepare for. And so, but being able to pivot and understanding the importance of, we have to lean into the turns together.
Yeah.
A lot of marriages they terminate the marriage because of this particular reason. The difficulty in leaning into the turn, the difficulty in changing in the season. You change, yes. Yep. people change.
Yes.
Seasons change.
It's almost inevitable.
That's right. And
Yeah.
so what happened is that, people say you changed. No, the problem could be you didn't change.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
You did not change.
Yes.
Because you didn't know how to lean, and so you stayed
Yes.
the same, but the situation wasn't the same.
Yes.
So when the situation changed, you have to know how to move, how to maneuver and change with the situation. And so I think that's a struggle with so many people, and so many people want to know how can I get my spouse to show up, and how can I show up? And so let's talk a little bit about that. Some of the things that I know that brothers feel sometimes. You can have a brother that's a go-getter, or not just necessarily a go-getter, a brother that has a dream, a brother that has a vision. And this happened particularly with visionaries. You and I talked about that just with, I'm a visionary. And it's important when being a visionary that you feel the support of your spouse. I'm a visionary, and God has blessed me with the ability to cast vision and to get buy-in from people. So when I cast vision, God has blessed people to buy into the vision that I cast. But what's important is, and what's most important, because I've seen people buy into it, what's most important is that you buy into it.
Correct.
Because if I feel that other people have bought into it and other people are following the vision I've cast, and you're not bought in, I feel that you're not showing up how I need you to show up.
Correct. That's very true.
And sometimes, it could be you have questions. It could be fear. It could be, just concern. It could be that you're not with it. But regardless of how you show up in that moment is very important to me. Because anything rather than I support you feels like you're not showing up how I need you to show up.
Correct.
And oftentimes it's even this, I don't mind the questions, I don't mind the concerns, I don't mind the working through, but at the end of the day, it's how you ask the questions, it's how you show your concern. It's those things are important, but at the end of the day, I need you to show it. Let's work through it, and at the end, when that conversation is over with, when we prayed, I need you to say, I got your back 100%. Yep. If you say that you heard from the Lord, if you say that this is what you see for our family, I have your back 100%, and I'm showing up with you. Because when that doesn't happen, oftentimes unnecessary frustration or unnecessary temptation could creep in, and I could feel a certain way, like they show up for me, they believe in me, they think I can do it, they're encouraging me, but my own spouses, they don't see the vision.
Which furthers the divide, which furthers the wedge. And it's funny because when you probably look at like just the dynamics of couples, most of the time, not that you marry your opposite, but that you, in some respects, there is a difference. Like some of the things that you may be like forward moving on, I may be a little more, I'm always going to probably be more calculated, like, all right, 4 + 4 is 8. That logically, okay, it's not making sense. And so instead of looking at it, sometimes I want to say so much in it, because I feel like that has been our dynamics. There are other couples that have our dynamics. You are the visionary. I'm more of a calculated risk taker. If I'm going to take a risk, it would have been a very calculated risk taker. But a dynamic that you have, though, that maybe just others don't have, is even your risks, the risk that you take, though, you're not as what's the word I'm looking for?
Careless, irresponsible.
Yeah, that. It's not in a careless and irresponsible way. Even though you are a visionary, you are a count up the cost guy too. Yeah. So it's not just, and I can trust in that. So it eases a little bit of my anxiety. Now, have you made me nervous on some things? Absolutely. But it's what calms me down sometimes is he has a track record. His track record says you can trust it. And even if it doesn't all the way pan out, it's still okay. You know what I'm saying? So it's if this is a couple and they're in a new place and he has a vision or has a direction that he's wanting to go in, you do have to lean into their track record, and you do have to lean into, but I think it's communicating. And you never, when you had something in your mind, you never made me feel like you were trying to do it apart from me. Like, even with you coming to start a church, we've told this a million times, but I never felt during the process like you were doing it opposite of me, because we think different, that you were leaving me behind. I never felt like that. As so much so, I felt like I was too involved. I was too involved. Like, okay, but yeah. So I never felt that, but I think that's just how you lead yourself. So it was reflected in, even though you're a visionary, even though you are forward moving, let's keep going, let's go, man, you didn't leave me. You made sure I was along for the journey. You played a part in that, which put me at ease, so that I could, now I still had my anxiety, because I tend to lean that way anyway. And so, yeah. And a part of that too is, if I had something to say, you trusted my wisdom about certain things. You know, I'm not calculated and a hard nose. I'm calculated, and sometimes my fear would rise, and I would say, this could be me, or this could be like, okay, what about this, or what about this? But that has developed. Where we are now is totally different. But I think that has developed over time too. We're almost 21 years in. So some of that, where we are now, we're able to kind of, I can see when, okay, Myron, that may not be flushed out as much as it probably need to be. And you can definitely say, yeah, Tori, I think that's your fear talking, or I think that's something else talking. That's where we are now. But early on, we had not built this type of track record, even with each other. Yeah. And it just took that. I'm thinking of doing something. I'm going to do it. I'm a part of the I'm executing it. I'm trying to execute it well. And I'm watching you execute it well. I'm watching you listen. I'm watching you become a student. I'm watching you even listen to me, and your execution yielded a successful result. Oh, that's one in the bag of a win. And even if things in anything that was pursued fell short, it didn't feel like it fell all the way short. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So yeah. I think for the person that is the goer or the visionary, or there is some diligence or due diligence that should be given to your spouse.
What advice do you have for the brother, of what he can do? And I think you talked about it in some of the things that I did, to help get her to show up. What's some advice you have for the brother?
Well, I would say to him, communicate. And I know sometimes as the visionary, every T and I is not dotted in the initial layout sometimes of what's to come. But as much as you can, think about and process some of that sometimes before taking it to your spouse, because kind of when you're in the lab working on it, developing it, it's not going to sound the same to the person that it may not sound to your wife like it's all together. And you kind of want to protect it. If it's something that God has given you, spend a little time mulling it over. And I think you have to be honest about the type of support you want. If you want her to be in that thing, like I mentioned about the church, you wanted me to be a part of that. You said, we can't do this by ourselves. We are going to do, it's a we. I'm the leader, but we are doing this together. Then that means we were figuring this thing out together. There are some things that God has given you as an individual that I can support. It's not a us thing. This is more of a you thing. And when it's a you thing, my support is going to look a little different. I'm not necessarily helping you figure the whole thing out. The church, we were in it together, so we figured it out together. When it's a you thing, you figured it out, but I was there to support and kind of say, hey, I saw this, or I saw that this was happening here. Have you heard this? Have you seen this? So on and so forth. I'm just kind of assisting and sending things your way to kind of help you formulate what it is that you're doing. But I think it's going to take the individual knowing what type of support do you want, and communicate along the way. How you communicated when you first said it, or said whatever it was that you were looking to do, it may look a little different in week 3 or 4, because it may be fleshed out a little bit more. But I think if you just talk and communicate along the way, then we can kind of figure this thing out. I'm not going to come in and some of that is personality, but I'm not going to come in and take over. I'm not going to come in and say, oh, this is what we're going to do to your vision. No, it's not for me to do. My job is to, in essence, just support. Yep. And I think that is for the brother. What type of support do you want, and communicate that. Mm-hmm. If it's not all the way fleshed out, say, hey, it's not all the way fleshed out. I'm just letting you in. This is kind of what I'm thinking. And if you are the wife and he is saying that, then just listen. Yep. Just listen. Don't have a plan. Because those of us who may be a little more type A, it's, okay, I'm already thinking about XYZ and how to make that happen, even though it's not mine.
That's right.
It's not my vision, but I've already thought about, that's you're going to need to do this, and this. When it's like, don't exert the energy there. I've learned to just don't exert anything in that. You wait for him to tell you what he may need. He may not necessarily need that support in that particular moment, and I'll blow it. I'll mess it up, and even for the future, I'll blow it. So,
and brother, I think that's really good. I also think it's important that you flesh it out as much as possible before you bring her in that process, because sometimes she can destroy it in your creative process before you fleshed it out. So do your due diligence in that. I think it's important to get wins under your belt, and she see you as a winner. She see that, maybe a smaller project, something small that you've done, you won in that area. But, that's one piece. And also, this is important. If you're a visionary and you get buy-in from everyone else, it's important that you get buy-in from your spouse
first.
But the buy-in is important. And sometimes you think this, just because you say it, you think that it should be immediate buy-in, or automatic buy-in.
Or that we don't even feel like we have to have it from my spouse. I don't have to have my spouse on board with something that I'm getting ready to do, because it comes along with the marriage package.
Right.
I get immediate buy-in from you, right?
But
that's not necessarily
that's right, because she can make it difficult. Or we're just speaking in terms of the guy being the visionary. Because she can make it difficult. She can make it difficult to where she could be with you, but she hadn't bought into it. Yep. You ever been on a team with somebody that they came along that journey with you, but they were not a team player.
Right.
And they didn't care if it failed. They didn't care if it succeeded. They really didn't care, because they was on the team. Yep. And they were sitting with the team. They rode the bus with the team. Yep. But they were in the game. They played the game, but they were not vested in the team. And they didn't care, if it succeeded or failed. And you don't want that from your spouse. And it's sad if that's the case, but sometimes it can be from a resentment from you, because they feel that you did not take them alongside that journey with them.
Correct.
I'm going to say that again. Sometimes your spouse feel that you did something, you jumped out, and you didn't bring them along. Now, you told them, but it's one thing in telling them and allowing them to feel a part of the journey with you. Yep. They must feel that they are a part of the journey, even if they don't do a lot. If it's to where they can't do the things that you can do, but they want to feel that they're a part in your thought process, in what you're doing, in your communication of it, and how it's progressing. And you have to do that. I find myself in leadership at church. It's people on our team that are dogs, and they go, and when we say let's do this, they're dogs. But at the same token, I don't take that for granted and feel like, hey, whatever I say, they're gonna get behind it. I listen to them and I get buy-in from them, because if I have buy-in from the right people, we can do some great things. If I don't have buy-in from key people, it's going to be a slower process.
Correct.
You know, and that's the thing. If you don't have buy-in from your spouse, it can be different. You don't know why it's a struggle. You don't know why they won't send the email or do some things that you asking them to do, because sometimes it can be that resentment because they didn't fully understand, or they didn't fully buy into it, or they didn't fully believe, or they felt that you didn't bring them along in that process. Right. So it's very important as a leader, because as a leader, you have to understand that buy-in is essential with anyone. Do not take your spouse for granted. Get the buy-in. And so that's from the visionary standpoint. From the one that is a type A personality, the one that is that counts up the cost more, the one that's a little hesitant or fearful, or take calculated risk, more serious. I think it's important that when something is being communicated to you from your spouse, in immediately you can't shoot it down. You can't have a whole lot, a million questions.
Don't make sense.
Yeah, it don't make. How you gonna do this? How we gonna pay for this? Where we gonna get the money? Where we gonna get the money from?
Yes.
We already got this. You started this. That didn't work.
Even though all of those things are gonna be swarming in your head, it's just not wise to say out of your mouth. Think it if you must. It's just your mind, just the way that everybody's wired different. But if that is your tendency, it's, hey, don't say it.
Yep.
Sometimes if you just be quiet, you'll hear later on, okay, that was a little more calculated than I thought. That was a little more, but it's just sometimes, it's definitely an answer, because we're on to the next thing. That ain't gonna work. Next. That ain't gonna work. Next. When it's like, no, you didn't hear the whole thing out.
Hear
me out.
Even if it sounds ridiculous. And sometimes, brother, it's because you made some terrible decisions. Yeah. You said we're going to get into real estate, and you didn't have a plan. You said we're going to open up the car detail shop, and you didn't have any equipment. You had no experience in it. You didn't do your homework. And sometimes you've done these things, and you failed at it. And she feel that, okay, are you taking us down this path again?
Correct.
And are we about to go into the poorhouse? And we had to take out this loan. And they was looking at repossessing the car. And and she don't want that season anymore. Correct. So a lot of time, visionary, you play a part in that.
Yeah.
You play a part in that because of your track record.
Yes.
So you have to make sure that if you have that bad track record, you do the extra work in communicating that, hey, listen, I know that this was the case, but this is what I'm thinking about, and getting more buy-in. Now, back to the type A. Correct. It's important when whatever the track record is. Now, if he has a great track record, your position should really be different.
Yep.
But if he has a bad track record, whatever the track record, or no track record, it's listen intently.
Yes.
Because if your spouse feel that you don't support them, that should never be the way it is in a marriage. He should never feel that way. She should never feel that you don't support me. And this is how it's displayed when they feel that you don't support them, because those million things going on in your head, and you, well, how we gonna do this? How we gonna pay for that? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I mean, baby, I ain't thought about all that, but what I'm saying, I think God has given this. I mean, I know you say God has given it to you. I mean, and I believe that, but you got to think about this right here. Then we ain't got no babysitter, and then we're gonna have to get some people to come in to do this right here, and we ain't even, they don't even make sense.
Yep.
When you do that, you shot the dreamer, and he look at you as, I can't. You're a vision killer or a dream killer, and I can't. It's hard to really talk to you, and you never want your spouse to feel that way about you.
Correct.
Because you have a million questions that you're asking.
Correct.
Ask the questions, but remember, in communication, it's about three things: timing, tone, and text. What are you saying? When are you saying it, and how are you saying it?
And realize that what you have is it's an asset to the relationship. Your partner being your spouse being a visionary, that's an asset to your family. You being a calculated person is an asset. Don't make it a liability by forcing it on your spouse. Neither one, though. Don't force it on your spouse. Yes. Doing things with no purpose. We're just doing it because it was a whim. You just thought about it. Like, we're just out here, and it may or may not. Yeah, we are unfortunately living in times where we can just do stuff. It may or may not work. So it's don't take not almost a gift. I don't want to say that, but don't take the blessing that the Lord has given you by being a visionary or being a calculated person. Don't take that and almost hurt your spouse with it. Embrace the fact that you two don't think the same about certain things. You're not supposed to. You are supposed to be a different thinker. And instead of using that, I think sometimes to hurt or delay or make it make sense. Some things just don't make sense. Some moves is just like I never would have made them. Some moves that you made, I never would have made those on my own. But it was, and your calculatedness will come in at some point, just not in the opening vision.
Come on, girl. Come on.
Part of it, because that's just that doesn't even. It's not even attractive to you. Like, yeah, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of this part of it. Yeah. So, yeah. But it's just embracing the difference. We are two different people, and embracing that.
You know, and also if you've been irresponsible in your execution of a vision that you've had, or you've had losses, and your spouse have a lot of questions, be okay with that.
Yeah.
Be okay with that.
Because you did that.
That's right. And sometimes you want to say, I know I messed with my pad, but this different. This different.
Correct.
No.
It's not. Show it that it's different.
You planted a seed, or we've seen evidence of your lack of being thorough or lack of follow through.
Yes. And
it has put us in a position that we didn't want to be in. So now you're saying, hey, look, let's do something else. Your spouse don't want to do anything else.
I will never forget. I was so mad at you when I told you I was going back to school. Dude. I said, I'm going back to school. And you were like, for what? Like, why? And I said, well, I thought, well, maybe I should just go ahead and do school counseling. But the only way that I would have been able to do that with my degree was to teach X amount of years. And then this was the setup at the time that I was going to have some classroom time. And I was like, oh, okay. So I came to you and was like, yeah, I'm about to do this program. And it was just, I felt like he is just not supporting me. He does not care about me. He does not love me. Like, that's anything you try to do, I say I'm with you. I say I'm going to do this. But what you said to me in that time was, yeah, Tori, when you take stuff on, like, man, everybody pay the price when you take stuff on. Like, it was at the time, it's just you and Madison. Like, okay, what we're going to do about her? You were still, if I'm not mistaken, coaching at the time. Like, when you going to school? How you going to go to school? So on and so forth. And it wasn't that you didn't love me. It wasn't that you wouldn't have supported me. Any of that. It was just, yeah, I know you. And when you go to school,
you go to school.
It's different. And so it's just really understanding. But I put that there because school had previously stressed me out. I was stressed to the stress. And I wasn't handling it well. Yeah. So you looked at that as, oh my, are we getting ready to be back here? Are we doing this again? And thankfully, before I could get in the program really good, I decided, yeah, this ain't it. But I needed that. Now, in the moment, I didn't see it. I really just feel like you are not being supportive, and I don't like it. And who are you?
You a hater?
Yeah, for real. Like, and you can literally feel like your spouse is a hater. Mm-hmm. Like, you hating on me. You don't want me to do better. And it's like, no, it's not that I don't want you to do better. What you were wanting for me was for me to count up the cost this time. Yeah. I want you to fully think about the investment. This is going to be time. You're going to be studying, and how are you going to go to school 2 nights? If I'm coaching, we still doing work. We still got this going, and it's like, how are we going to make this happen? And so thankfully the Lord intervened and opened my eyes, and I wasn't, that's not something I want to do anyway. And there are some couples that are trying to find their way. I'm going to try a little bit of this. I'm going to try a little bit of this. I'm going to try a little bit of that. And I honestly feel like for some people that's okay, because sometimes it takes a minute to figure out your thing. That's right. Or to figure out your lane. But while you're doing that, just know that you're in a relationship with somebody else. Just be mindful of, I'm not out here by myself. So me picking up new efforts and or a new passion, I have to be accountable, even in marriage, to my spouse, especially if it's costing us money.
Come on, sweet.
Especially if it's costing us time. So, because if you're picking up a night in school, who's going to do the things that you were doing the night that you were here? This is not necessarily about roles. I'm not even having a roles conversation. I'm just saying, if you picked up the kids on Monday, but now you're going to be in class, let's figure this thing out. Instead of just, oh no, y'all figure it out. Y'all, getting rid of sometimes the selfishness that's in there too.
Yeah. And I think, just as it relates to the school, what's important is the track record is, because sometimes we get in a marriage and you forget that you got a track record. You forget.
Yes.
Hey, so you want me to forget about the last 3 things that you did and,
yes,
and
please.
It failed.
Please.
And I can't forget about that.
Well, yeah.
So this failed. And so we just go get into it. Not only do you want me to forget about it, you don't even want me to ask about it. I want to do this 4th thing, even though 3 things failed. This 4th thing that I'm doing is going to hit. And so why are you asking so many questions? So when you know that there's been a track record, or even trying to establish a track record, you have to understand that, hey, listen, I know that the last time in school, like, your spouse deserves that.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I know the last time in school, this is what happened. And, I know that you felt that I wasn't meeting your needs, or you felt that, I was overwhelmed and stressed. But this time, this is what I put in place.
Yep.
I put this in place to ensure that, I don't get stressed out. I put this in place to ensure that I'm not, that you
As
don't
best
feel
as I
neglected.
can. Correct.
I put this in place. And so I think that the time is now different. So the same results that we had 3 years ago when I went to school is not going to be the same, because these things are in place now.
Yep.
Now it'll give me a little more confidence in believing in you going back to school. But if it's just, I want to go back to school and nothing has changed, because sometimes people, there has to be some level of transformation.
Yeah.
What has changed? Let me know what systems are in place, what systems are no longer in place that was in place when you failed, that'll prevent us from being in that same situation.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing different, then I have no confidence in the vision that you're presenting to me.
Correct.
That's some good stuff.
It is very
so
much so.
you have to show your spouse that, listen, when this failed, this is what was going on. Now we're here, and calm down and calm down and know that, hey, listen, I have to. Don't feel like, if I want to go back to school, I can go back to school. I want to.
Yeah.
I'm a grown person. I don't say nothing to you. You went back to school.
You absolutely can.
But that can't be the mindset and the mentality. Or you can do that.
Yeah, you
but
can. There's a price to pay.
At what cost?
Yep.
You do it and your spouse not supporting. You do it and I ain't picking up the kid. You do it and we just going. And so
or it's this existence of forced support where I just kind of got to show up. I agree, but I'm not in agreement. I agree, but I'm definitely not in agreement. And now I can't fully celebrate your wins with you, and it's almost the existence of a little if it doesn't
if it don't work. That's right.
So
and that's where we got to eliminate that in our marriage. And and sometimes you have that in your marriage. You feel like if you're not successful, your spouse is saying, I told you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because you didn't do a great job of getting buy-in from your spouse. And also if they don't do a great job, let them know that you support them and use wisdom in how you communicate the track record. Not you lost you failed the last time, you dropped out the last time, we lost money the last time. No, don't say that, but it's just the time and the text and the tone in terms of like, so baby, I'm okay, baby, I'm okay. You got a vision. Okay, can we talk about it like in detail so you can just walk me through it so I can really, because I want to be on board with you.
Yeah.
And as they walk you through it, then you have your questions and say, so what's happening different? Okay. And if they have a plan, get behind them and support them, because that's how unnecessary temptation can creep in as well. And see, this is what we want to do. We want to protect infidelity. We want to protect the marriage from the enemy creeping in, because if your spouse feel that you don't support them, but now an outsider support them, temptation can easily creep in, and now you're
Correct.
feeling like this man, he really believes in me. He feel like I should go to school. He supports my dream. He thinks that I'm very articulate, and you feel like that I can't do it. It's like, nah, I don't feel like that.
Yep.
What I'm saying is that, hey, I'm counting up the cost, and I
Yep.
don't know if you're counting up the cost,
Yep.
and you're not putting in the work to communicate with me that you have counted up the cost. You just have an idea and you want to do it and say, okay, I supported you, so support me.
So let's make sure emotionally, our EQ is on point, so that we can take that, because that's a hard conversation, because
right.
I literally felt away. But it's when you calm down, you have to realize I did that. I did. I caused those concerns. I brought that on. So let me be a big girl. We have to be big girls and big boys.
Yeah.
And we have to say, or grown men and
Yep.
grown women,
Yeah.
and say, you know what? I might have sown into
A seed
this
of doubt.
this seed of doubt.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
about me. And
Come on,
I have
but-
to do the work
Oh
of
my God.
plucking that up. And the
Yes.
plucking that up is, let me show consistency in this. Let me show almost the opposite, or what is contrary to the doubt that is there.
Yeah.
And it's well, how do you do that? What is the doubt that's there? Do they feel like, well, when you take on this new effort, that you're gonna not do well financially? Then show on the front end, for one, learn a new way to manage and do the money, so that you can show this is how we're going to execute this. Is it with your time management? Then show the fruit of, I have spent more time managing my time. I'm learning to use block schedules, or I'm doing a better job of planning out my days. I'm only tackling certain tasks. Whatever the issue was, then you have to put forth the effort to pluck that out, to get rid of the old seed, and let's sow some new seeds. And it is a simple thing that is hard to do.
Yep.
It is a simple task, but it is hard to do, but it is worth it. It is worth it if you are talking about accomplishing something, and you want your spouse to support. And this is just when we're talking about outside support. Like, this is not the support you may need inside your home, or
That's another podcast.
yeah, that's something else. We're just talking about if your spouse is seeking to do endeavors, business, ministry, any of these things outside of the home. Because you have to think about how it's going to impact and affect on all fronts.
Yeah. So what's important is for you to calm down. And communicate and understand what seeds you've sown in the past.
Correct.
Understand the importance of buy-in. Talk slowly through the process. Let them see the work that you've been doing.
Yes.
And help to instill confidence within them. That's important. Don't do your own thing. I'm grown. I'm going to do it anyway. Because you're going to eat the fruit of that decision.
Yes.
When you do that.
Yes.
And so sometimes you get frustrated, but I helped them. And I ain't say none of them. And I say, yeah, but y'all may not have the same track record. And it's okay. It's okay. And you mentioned, having the emotional intelligence to be able to receive some tough conversation and not just, I do what I want to do. I ain't finna be, that's too much like work. And sometimes marriages are not successful because people are not willing to put in the work.
Even
it's too much.
Finding out what we have to do. Some people don't know the work because we just don't know the work. But we're not even putting in the work to find out
what the work is. That's it. That's good.
That we need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's it, to where, hey, I'm just going, I ain't finna be, because sometimes this can sound overwhelming. And this can sound like, why I got to do all of that to get, you have to do that. But see, that's good leadership. That's not just in marriage. That's good leadership, to where you can lead like that if you want to. But if you lead like that and you don't have buy-in like that with key players, that's on any team, that's in any organization, you have to, before we do something big, I have to get buy-in with key people. I don't have to, but it'll behoove me to do that, because these people are going to help carry the vision out. These people are going to run with the vision and get buy-in from people that they influence. And so with your spouse, if you don't slow down and put in the work to get the buy, that's why I thank God for this podcast, because I think it helps with with the verbiage. It helps with the understanding that, okay, I did not know that this was the steps I needed to take. I did not know that these things were important. So I think it helps give, insight to that, to where, I this is what's been happening in my marriage, and I hadn't been doing this.
Right. And
this how I've been receiving my spouse who been keeping us in the po house or keeping us in a situation that's been very uncomfortable. Even in that, I can't just buck the system and like, no, you ain't going back to school. When you brought that to me, I can probably, like, in my mind, I could have been, no, sir, we not doing that. But in my delivery of it, I felt that I communicate, hey, sweetie, so, how does this look? What if we did this? I don't agree with you doing it right now because of these things right here.
Correct.
So I didn't change what I needed to communicate, but my delivery, I needed to hear you out.
Yep.
Because you needed to know that you were heard.
Yes.
My body language didn't need to be like, oh, brother, we're going back to school again. You know what I'm saying? So you needed to know that. And then now you have to be willing to have this conversation. Because if I continue to allow you to do that, then that's a win-lose situation.
Yes,
and
sir.
I lose, and our situation is terrible. And I'm not getting my needs met. Our daughter not getting her needs met. We all over the place, and we back in the place that we once in because I failed to communicate.
Yes,
so I have to communicate and communicate it properly and pray, and prayerfully you'll see, the direction you need to take.
Yeah.
But in that, when you started, it's because once we make that decision and I agree with it, I'm not going to agree with it without being in agreement with you. I'm going to do everything possible to help show up in that moment and support you in that moment.
Yes.
If you're going back to school, I'm not going to hate. I'm not going to see there.
Yeah.
And I think even when you decided not to continue in that, it was, okay, it was, you never heard, see there, I told you to want the right thing.
Yeah.
We should have thought about that on the front end.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, it wasn't that.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, because that's not wise. And so many times marriages fail, or they suffer, or people are frustrated because they don't have these tools that you're getting on today. So I pray that God has given you some tools on today to help you to show up and to help you communicate your need for them to show up. And by gaining buy-in.
Well, hey, everybody, that's all we have for today's episode. We just want to say how much we thank you and appreciate you for being on this Still in Love journey with us. And we hope that you are as blessed by our conversation today as we were in having it.
And remember, don't just start in love,
but stay in love.
God bless.
Peace, y'all. Thank you for listening to the Still in Love podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has indeed blessed your life. If it has, we need you to do 3 things for us. 1, we want you to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform so that way you can be notified when a new episode drops. Number 2, we want you to review it. Click on that 5-star and let us know how much you enjoyed it. We absolutely love feedback here at the Still in Love podcast, and this helps us to make sure that we are scratching where there's an itch. And number 3, we want you to share it with a friend or family member. Also, if you have a question, we'd love to hear it and even talk about it right here on the podcast. You can submit those questions at stillinlovepodcast.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Innovation Church Memphis and on TikTok at We Are Innovation. Until next time, peace.
Don't just start in love,
but stay in love.
Thanks for tuning in to Still in Love podcast.